Hello and welcome to Cliff Reviews Art House. This time I'm reviewing the 1955 film Patha Panchali, directed by Satyajit Ray. A friend has been encouraging me to watch this film and he told me it's his favourite film. It's been on my list for a while and I finally got round to watching it. He's not the only one to hold it in high regard. Christopher Nolan, for example, said that he thinks it's one of the best films ever made. Patha Panchali is included in many lists of the greatest films. In the most recent BFI Sight and Sound Critics poll of the 100 greatest films of all time, it was ranked 35th. So clearly this film is regarded with high critical acclaim. I found this film really hard work. It's 2 hours long. I tried to be patient with it. And I was constantly thinking that it must have something that I haven't seen yet or that I'm missing. Watching this film has really got me thinking about how should I watch old films today? Whether I should judge them by the same standard that I judge every film today, or whether I should make allowances for the particular context or circumstance of a film. I'll talk more about this later, but my gut feeling is that first and foremost, I should watch old films as they stand up today, not make allowances for them. So let's start by giving the reasons why I found this film really hard work. The biggest problem is that the production quality is so poor. The sound is bad, the editing is terrible, there is a narrative of sorts, but the cuts between scenes are sometimes so rough. The film jumps between the various episodes in the film. There's no cohesion in the storytelling or the editing. The film is very slow with minimal story. This isn't a problem in itself, but it needs to be beautifully made in order for this to work. And I just don't feel that this film is beautifully made. I've read that the film had many production problems with a limited budget, lack of funds, frequent interruptions to production, that it used mostly amateur actors and an inexperienced crew. Perhaps the film is a real achievement that it got produced at all. I can acknowledge this, but I don't feel that I should judge the film by different standards just because it was difficult to make. I think there's also an editing problem with the music. Ravi Shankar provided the score and the music is good, but there are times when I don't think there's been any attempt at synchronizing it with the footage. It feels in part like it's just been tacked on almost randomly. So can I say anything positive about Patha Panchali? I'll try, and I can mention three things. First, I can see that Ray has attempted to film this in a poetic way. The camera lingers on mundane details, rustling branches, brushing hair, flies on water. There are some interesting overhead shots, but the poetry is lost because of the poor production quality. I can see what he was trying to do, but it just doesn't work for me. Seeing that he was trying to be poetic just isn't enough. I like the scene where it lingers on the rainstorm from the inside of the house, and I also like the scene where the father returns from his work to find out terrible news. We don't hear the sound he's making because it's drowned out by this screeching music. These scenes were the closest that the film came to compelling drama or poetry for me, but I honestly feel that I'm stretching it a bit to make this point. The second thing which was interesting was the train. Not much is said about the train, but we hear the train in the background at several points throughout the film. And then we have a scene where the children run across the field towards the train. This is poetic and it does kind of work. The metaphor is unclear, which I really like. I think these people have little opportunity and life is stacked against them. So the train perhaps represents progress, possibility rushing past them. There's no chance for them to get on the train. A third positive point is that the film is taking on some big social issues. Class, work, healthcare. There's a lot of discussion about the father's job and when and what he'll be paid, and the fact that he has to be away from the family. I have to admit my ignorance. I don't know Indian cinema at all well, but I can understand that the social realism in this film may have felt really fresh compared to Indian films of the day. All that said, I'm really scraping the barrel to find some positives. Overall, I just couldn't get on board with this film. I really struggle to see why it's so highly regarded. Of course, I'm left feeling a little bit uneasy going so much against the grain. The film is so highly regarded that I hesitate to be so dismissive without a bit more inquiry. So I did a bit of research on why it's so well regarded. When the film is considered in context, there seems to be unanimous opinion that it is radical for 1955 Indian filmmaking. It was very different to the melodramatic musicals which dominated Indian cinema at that time. Part of this innovation was that it focused on realism. I think you could call this a social realist film. There's no optimism in this film. There's death, poverty, hunger, there's sadness, there's loneliness. The snake at the end definitely isn't conveying a positive message. This is like an Indian version of a Ken Loach film. It's not offering any hope. Perhaps this is a positive point. It was made in 1955. Maybe it was a bit ahead of its time. Although there have been comparisons made with Italian neorealism like Bicycle Thieves from 1948. So I don't think it can be said that Patha Panchali is the first social realist film. But I think we can say that Ray is doing something original in terms of genre at that time. So seen in context, I can understand that this film is perhaps incredibly original and therefore really important in the history of film. But this raises the question of how to engage with iconic films, what we might call canon works in art and culture. How should we treat masterpieces that are aging poorly? A little while back I reviewed the J. Lee Thompson film Yield to the Night, which was made around the same time as Patha Panchali. I really enjoyed Yield to the Night and it's definitely aged much better. I think it's a really interesting question whether we should watch old films as historical artifacts or as living art. One argument could be to watch films as they were made. This would suspend modern expectations and let the film do what it did in 1955. And as a student of film history, I'm definitely interested in getting this perspective on a film. It is important to know what the film would have looked like in its day. However, I do think that this risks protecting a film on its reputation rather than actually engaging with it. The other approach is to watch the film today with a full awareness of the evolution and history of cinema. And I think this is the way I watch films. The film has to compete in the living space of today's ideas and aesthetics. For me, the great films have a timeless quality. Overall, I do believe that understanding the context of a film is essential, but that context shouldn't be used as an excuse to overrate films that no longer speak with force, beauty or innovation to a modern audience. I found Patha Panchali badly made and frankly boring. This is definitely not the same as saying it's worthless. What I'm saying is the experience of watching it today doesn't match the reverence built around it, at least for me. I recognise this is a matter of taste and opinion, but I definitely don't recommend this film. It should be consigned to the archives of important but no longer relevant film history. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.